When my grandmother passed away, I was the only one left to deal with her old house. It sat on the edge of a dying town called Marrow Creek, surrounded by thick forest and fog so dense it made mornings look like dusk. I arrived in early November, with just enough daylight to unlock the creaky door and breathe in that unmistakable scent. Dust, mold, and memories. The house was small. Wooden floors groaned under every step, and old photographs lined the hallway like forgotten witnesses. I was supposed to stay for a few days, sort her things, maybe list the property. That was the plan. I never planned to see what I saw. On the second day, I took a walk behind the house. The yard stretched further than I remembered as a kid, and past the brittle garden fence was a path barely visible through the fallen leaves. About 20 meters in, I saw it. A collapsed structure, gray wood, leaning, silent, half swallowed by the woods. It looked like a shed at first, but there were strange things hanging from it. Bundles of sticks tied with twine, feathers, bones. I stepped closer, and a smell hit me. Something between wet earth and old rot. Then I noticed the door. It was boarded shut. Not from the outside, but from the inside. Later that day, I went to the only neighbor within walking distance. A woman in her 60s named Irene who'd lived on the same road since she was a kid. I asked her about the shed. Her face dropped. She stared at me for a moment and said, "Don't go near that place." I tried to laugh it off, but she didn't smile. That hut belonged to a woman named Mrs. Bellamy. She lived alone. People say she could talk to animals, that she could curse crops just by walking past them. I asked the obvious. "Is she still alive?" Irene whispered,
"She burned in that hut in 1982, but not everything stays buried in Marrow Creek."
That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, just the feeling of being in someone else's space. The floor creaked every few minutes. I told myself it was just the wood settling, but my mind kept drifting to that hut. Around 3 a.m., I thought I heard something tapping on the glass of the back window. I turned on my phone light and looked outside. Nothing but trees. But the next morning, there were footprints in the frost, bare feet, leading away from the house. I started searching for anything about Mrs. Bellamy. At the town library, buried in a box of old newspapers, I found an article from October 1982. Local woman dies in fire. Rumors of witchcraft surround tragedy. There was a photo. The moment I saw her face, I froze. Pale, thin lips, deep-set black eyes that seemed too aware. The article claimed her remains were never recovered. Fire burned the inside of the hut, but the outside stayed mostly intact. A line at the bottom chilled me. Several locals reported sightings of her after the blaze, but all were dismissed. That night I stayed up. Something about those eyes in the photo made me want answers. Around 3:10 a.m., I sat near the back window with the lights off. The forest was pitch black. No wind. Just silence. Then, 3 soft knocks, measured, deliberate. I shone my flashlight through the glass. For half a second, something reflected back. 2 eyes, just beyond the tree line. But by the time I opened the door and stepped outside, there was no one there. Only the sound of wind picking up through the trees. The next morning, I noticed scratches on the inside of the back door. Not claw marks, these were deliberate. 3 vertical lines, and 1 crossing through them, like someone counting days. They hadn't been there before. I would have noticed. Irene hadn't mentioned anything about people breaking in, but something about those marks made me think of that hut. I walked back into the woods that afternoon, hoping maybe I was being paranoid. But when I reached the hut again, something was different. The boards on the door. One of them had been pulled loose. from the inside. This time, I walked around the hut slowly. I didn't get too close, but something caught my eye. Hanging from a branch above the door was a small bundle, a bit of black string wrapped around a lock of human hair. I reached up and took it down, and the moment I touched it, a high-pitched sound, like a distant scream, rang in my ears. I dropped it. The forest went quiet, not silent, empty. No birds, no wind, like the world had paused. I turned around and walked back toward the house without looking back. I didn't sleep that night. While going through my grandmother's old things, I found a leather-bound journal. It had no title. The first few pages were just memories, people she met, recipes, lists. But the later entries were different. One page had a date circled, October 28th, 1982. Beneath it, she wrote, "The screaming hasn't stopped. I saw her again near the garden. She's not dead. I don't think she ever was." Then another entry. "If anyone reads this, burn the hut. Seal it. Don't open it, even if she calls your name." That was the last page. The rest had been torn out. That night, just past 3 a.m., the power went out. The lights flickered for a moment before dying completely. I lit a candle and waited. My phone still worked, and I opened the camera, set it to face the backyard. Nothing moved. Then, a shape. On the left side of the screen, for just a second, something passed by the window. No sound, no footsteps, just a shadow. I ran to the door, flung it open. Again, nothing. But in the distance, between the trees, I heard a soft whisper. It was saying my name. The next day, I went to Irene again. I showed her the journal. She turned pale. "I told your grandmother to leave that place alone," she muttered, but she wouldn't listen. I asked her what Mrs. Bellamy really was. She didn't answer directly, just said, "Some people live beyond the rules of death. They feed on fear, on attention." That hut was her tether. She handed me a rosary. "Keep this on you. If she knows you've seen her, she won't stop coming." That night, I set up a motion camera in the hallway, pointed at the back door. I watched from my phone as I lay in bed, heart pounding. Minutes passed, then hours, then 3:12 a.m., motion detected. The screen flickered. A tall figure stood in the frame, half shrouded in shadow. She wasn't knocking. She was just standing there, facing the door, head tilted, and then she turned slowly toward the camera. Her face pale, rotted, skin like wax. Her mouth didn't move. But the feed glitched, and through my phone's speaker, I heard her say,
"You let me in."
After what I saw on the motion camera, I couldn't sleep. I stayed in the living room, lights on, rosary in hand. I kept telling myself, it's a hallucination, a dream, a trick of the eyes. But just before dawn, I walked past the hallway window and froze. There were handprints pressed against the glass, thin, long-fingered, from the inside. I didn't hear her enter. The door was locked, and yet something had been inside with me. The handprints were still slightly wet, as if she'd just left. The next morning, I checked every lock, every window. Everything was sealed tight. But when I entered the small guest room we never used, something was wrong. One wall, the far side, was different. Not structurally, but energetically. The air was colder, heavy. I tapped on it. It echoed back, hollow. Peeling away old wallpaper near the corner, I found a narrow seam, then wood, and then something else. An eye painted crudely in red, and below it, "She waits in the hollow. She feeds on silence." It wasn't just a warning. It was a seal. That night, I wore the rosary around my neck and tried to sleep again. Just after 3:12, I heard my name. Not a whisper, not a knock, a clear voice, a woman's voice, from inside the house.
Open the door.
It said.
You left it open last time.
I didn't move. I just stared at the ceiling. Then I heard it again. Closer this time.
You saw me.
The voice was directly next to my bed. I turned on the flashlight. Nothing was there, but the air smelled like burned hair and wet wood. I went back to the library the next day. I wasn't sure what I was looking for anymore, but I found something new. An old police report from 1983. A teenager had gone missing near the property. Last seen camping with friends. They found his shoes by the edge of the woods. His flashlight was recovered, and it still worked. The last photo on the roll of film inside showed a blurry figure in the background. White hair, bare feet, one eye visible, watching. The boy was never found. Mrs. Bellamy's case was never reopened, but the report noted, locals refused to enter the woods. Several claimed to see the same woman for years afterward. I couldn't take it anymore. I went back into the forest. The hut was still there, like it had never aged, only now. The door was wide open. Inside, the floor was covered in ash. Charred dolls hung from the ceiling. Jars of dark liquid lined the shelves. In the center sat a wooden chair, and on that chair was a photo of me, taken inside my bedroom from the corner, from the spot near the hollow wall. I burned the photo. I wanted to destroy the entire hut, but as I lit the match, the air shifted. A voice, hers, screamed inside my skull, not through my ears. It felt like she was inside me. I collapsed outside the hut, gasping. When I looked back, the hut wasn't on fire. It was untouched. But there, at the entrance, stood the woman, Mrs. Bellamy. Her face was cracked, her lips split, her eyes milky and hateful. And in her hands, she held my grandmother's rosary. She smiled. I tried to run. My legs barely responded, but instinct took over. When I looked back, she was gone. No sound, no smoke, just the woods. Back at the house, I dumped gasoline around the hut's photo, the journal, and anything else I thought might be hers. I lit a match, dropped it, and watched as the fire hissed and then fizzled. The flames rose for half a second and then simply died. Like something sucked the oxygen out of the room. The air turned ice cold, and from the hallway I heard the voice again, closer than ever.
You don't get to leave now.
The power had gone again. I lit the last remaining candle and sat in the kitchen with my back to the wall. I wasn't alone. I could hear her walking now, bare feet across the wooden floor, slow, deliberate, not hiding anymore. The candle flickered hard. The flame bent sideways. Something was moving in the room with me. Then came a whisper right behind my ear.
Look at me.
I turned, and for the first time, I saw her face up close. It wasn't burned. It wasn't rotted. It was mine. I don't remember running, but somehow I ended up in my car. The keys were already in the ignition. I drove until I couldn't see trees anymore. I checked into a motel 40 miles out and locked every latch on the door. When I finally calmed down, I checked my phone. One voicemail. It was from my landline, my grandmother's old house. The voice was soft, crackling.
You can't run from what's already inside you.
I smashed the phone against the wall. 2 days passed. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. But then I received a letter. No return address. Inside was a photograph. It was me, sleeping in the motel bed. Taken from the foot of the bed. On the back of the photo, in thin, faint handwriting, you invited her when you opened the wall. I never opened that wall. Not fully. Did I? I checked out that same day, tried to disappear, rented a cabin states away under a fake name. But the knocking followed. Not every night, just on the ones when I thought maybe, just maybe, I was free. Always at 3:12 a.m., always 3 knocks. I tried sleeping with music on, sleeping with lights, never sleeping. It didn't matter. She'd already left the woods, and I had brought her with me. Some nights, I hear her whispering in places she shouldn't be, in elevators, inside mirrors, in strangers' voices. She doesn't want the house or the hut or even my fear anymore. She wants my place. And every time I try to explain what happened, people just look at me like I'm losing my mind. But the hollow wall in my grandmother's house is still there. And if you ever find it, don't open it. Don't listen to her. She's always waiting behind it for someone just like me.